Hi, everybody. It's story time today on the podcast, but unlike a fictional story or a metaphorical story that I love to tell you, I'm actually going to tell you a real story about a client, and specifically a client and her relationship with money. But this isn't a story about money in the way you'd expect. So with this full moon in Aries, there's a lot of energy around action, independence, and forward movement. And even if you're not listening to this, around April 4th, it's totally okay because there's always energy of action, independence, and forward movement. What I see so often as a coach is people trying to push their way into change, force their way into change, fix their way into change, try to be more disciplined, try to do it right, try to finally get control of something, especially when it comes to money. What I've learned, both in my own life and my 22 years of doing this professionally, is that real change does not come from pushing harder. In fact, that often does the opposite. It comes from actually understanding what's underneath the pattern. So I want to share this story because I think you might see yourself, or at least parts of yourself, in it. So like I said, this is a story about a client that I worked with a few years ago. I'm going to call her Emily. And on paper, she was great with money. She didn't overspend. She had savings. She paid her bills on time. If you looked at her life from the outside, you'd think she was doing everything right. She even was able to pay for my coaching services through her business and use it as a business consulting expense. So she found ways to really support herself with money. But yet, she was exhausted. Not necessarily physically exhausted in the way we think about it. It was more like this low-level, constant pressure running in the background of her life. Every decision had weight to it. She really struggled with decision-making. And every financial decision, especially every purchase, had a whole conversation attached to it. She'd go to buy something as simple as a new pair of shoes, let's say, and she'd find herself spiraling into thoughts like, do I really need this? Is this the right choice? Should I wait? What if something happens later and I need this money? And the thing is, it was never about the shoes. It showed up everywhere. When it was time for her to book a flight, that meant opening up 10 tabs, comparing prices for days, and then feeling anxious even after she made the best choice. Now, that best choice was probably the most frugal choice, not necessarily the most comfortable choice at a time she actually wanted to fly. Going out to dinner with friends meant scanning the menu for the most reasonable option, even if she could really afford something else. And then often feeling this subtle resentment she didn't want to admit. Even investing in herself, like me, courses, support, anything that could actually grow her life, came with weeks of overthinking and a quiet voice that said, you shouldn't need this, you shouldn't do this. And again, from the outside, she looked really responsible, but inside, it did not feel like freedom to her. It felt like contraction. And this overthinking really invaded every aspect of her life, whether it was in her dating life, in her work life, in choices with family and friends. It was everywhere. So I remember asking her one day, because she'd been talking about booking a weekend away for almost 2 weeks at this point, going back, rethinking it, figuring if she could use points, on and on. And I said, what happens in your body? Close your eyes. What happens in your body when you actually imagine being there? When you actually imagine booking the trip and being there? And she got quiet. And she said, I think I'm having the wrong response. I said, there are no wrong responses. She said, well, my chest tightens. It really feels like I'm doing something wrong. That moment told us everything because she had the money. It wasn't about affordability. This was about what her nervous system believed was safe. So we started to gently unpack it. And what we found was that she grew up in a home where money wasn't just tight, it was unpredictable. So there were moments when things felt okay, and then moments where there was stress, tension, and conversations about cutting back. And we know from all the work that we've all done, right? And you know from listening to the show that inconsistency in childhood often creates a trauma imprint in our nervous system. There's a baseline that our nervous system forms in our family of origin. And when there's inconsistency in any area, that imprints on our nervous system. And as a child, we have to adapt to whatever situation we're in. And that's what Emily did. She adapted. She became the responsible one. the one that didn't ask for much, the one who learned that being good meant being careful, practical, responsible. And again, it worked until she became an adult who actually had enough, but she still didn't feel like it. So instead of jumping into strategy or telling her just to relax or just spend, because I don't think either one of those are good pieces of advice, we started somewhere more foundational. We began noticing her internal experience around everything, but particularly money in real time. Not tracking every dollar, not getting an Excel spreadsheet and doing a budget, but tracking every moment of contraction, every set of beliefs that would go off. So every time she picked something up in a store, added something to a cart, looked at her credit card bill, considered investing in herself, I had her pause and ask, what am I feeling in my body right now? And in that question, she started to see that so many choices produced a feeling of fear. Almost everything was coming from fear. And there was one moment she shared that really stuck with me. She was at Target holding a $24 candle, right? And we can think $24 is a lot to spend on a candle, but like when our conversation around money changes, we don't have those thoughts. And I'll get to that in a moment. And she stood there for 5 minutes trying to decide if she should get it. And I asked her later, what was really happening in that moment? And I remember she said it actually wasn't about the candle. It was this whole internal voice saying, this is unnecessary. You don't need this. Be responsible. So I asked her, if it's not about the candle, what does buying it represent? And she said, letting myself have something just because I want it. And that's where the shift began. Because the goal, it wasn't to turn her into someone who spends more. I'm never someone that advocates frivolous spending. It's more about feeling safe in her financial decisions and feeling safe to include her desire in her financial decisions. And I can relate so much to this. I was always a practical one, responsible one. And my relationship with money got a little wonky because even though on paper I could afford to buy things that I really wanted, but maybe didn't have a point or I didn't think I deserved or whatever story I made up around it, I kept myself from doing that. And I thought that was a good thing to do, but I didn't realize it actually had me more in a scarcity mentality and more in a contraction energy. So with myself and with Emily in the story, we worked on going back in time and reprogramming her nervous system around decisions, around money, and around feeling supported. Because when there's inconsistency in our childhood, we often don't imprint the feeling of support. There's a lot of programming that defaults to, I have to make things work. I'm on my own. I need to take care of myself. And money, we project that on money, right? Like I have to be super responsible. I have to make this work. I have to take care of myself. We see ourselves managing, controlling money. We actually don't see money supporting us, right? And it impacts our ability to generate and to receive and to actually enjoy what money can bring to us. Everything from the relief it can bring if we need to see a specialist and they aren't covered by insurance and we don't have to overthink it, to being able to book a really amazing trip because we want to. So with Emily, we did that rewiring, that reprogramming. We did work with her inner child and we helped her subconscious update and upgrade. And then we did small steps. It wasn't booking the trip right away, but it was going back to Target and buying that candle, but consciously buying it. And she stood there and she felt into her body when she grabbed the candle off the shelf. And she said, I'm safe. I'm enough. I'm allowed to have this. I'm allowed to have what I enjoy. And then she walked and she checked out and she enjoyed that candle. And what she noticed afterwards was so important. There was no regret. There was actually relief and a sense of space. Again, not because of the candle, but because she didn't let fear make her decisions for her. And from there, she continued to build. She continued to build and strengthen her relationship with money. She eventually booked the trip. P.S. Nothing changed in terms of the income she was making. It did later, but not in this moment. And she almost canceled 3 times before she went, but luckily we were still working together and we could work with what came up. What are you afraid will happen? She said things like, what if I need the money later? And I'd say, well, if that happened, what would that mean about you? Well, that I wasn't responsible, that I messed up. And so we kept working on that loop that she got in. That was that bracing loop that really was happening in her body, not intellectually. And she started to feel what it would be like to trust herself instead of trying to control every outcome. And over time, something really started to shift for her. She began making decisions that included her desires, not just her fears. She actually upgraded her flight for a work trip instead of choosing the most inconvenient option that was the cheapest. She invested in a program she'd been putting off for a year, and she stopped over-researching every decision and started trusting her internal yes. And I remember her saying to me, Christine, oh my gosh, the time I wasted trying to find the quote unquote least expensive option, that was such an opportunity cost for me. And I was like, yes, now you're feeling into money in a healthy way. And what's so amazing, and my favorite part, is that her internal contraction softened. She felt so much freedom in her body, so much freedom from the overthinking. And lo and behold, the external world started to shift. She received a raise she hadn't even asked for. And she started feeling more open, more energized, more available to opportunities. She even called in her now fiance. Not because she forced anything, but because she wasn't relating to money and really her whole life from fear anymore. Her system had the capacity to receive, right? The capacity to receive. And this is the part I wish more people understood. You can do all the right things with money and still feel like you're holding your breath. Because if your nervous system doesn't feel safe, no amount of strategy will ever create that sense of ease. That's why I'm so passionate about this work, helping people feel safe to have more, hold more, expand their capacity, and actually enjoy what they create. Now, I know not everyone is going to do this kind of one-on-one work with me. And honestly, when it comes specifically to money, there's only one person I consistently recommend, someone who teaches how to shift your relationship with money in such a grounded, practical, and accessible way. And that is my friend, Kate Northrup. And she truly is my friend. I've known her for really since we were kids. She's hosting a free workshop called Good with Money, where she walks you through how to actually shift your relationship with money at the subconscious and nervous system level, exactly the work I did with Emily, so that your financial life can change in a way that actually lasts. You can go register for this free workshop at christinehassler.com/goodwithmoney. So if you saw yourself anywhere in this story, I highly encourage you to check it out. Again, christinehassler.com/goodwithmoney. We will throw the link in the show notes as well. And Emily, if you're listening, you know who you are. Thank you for allowing me to share part of your journey, both as your coach and in this story. And I'll ask you all, dear listeners, I sound like Mrs. Whistledown if anyone watches Bridgerton. Dear listeners, she's dear readers, but anyway, random Bridgerton reference. I encourage all of you listening right now to really feel into what it would feel like to feel free and excited and abundant and prosperous and relief. That's my favorite feeling. I love the feeling of relief when it comes to money. Kate will show you how to do this. And I want you to know that this workshop isn't just personal development inside stuff. She's going to give you a roadmap. She's going to help you look at your money ecosystem. And that's what I love about this workshop is it's the internal work, but it's also like, what do you actually do? So it's grounded in that practical advice that really changes things. So again, christinehassler.com/goodwithmoney. Hope to see you there. I attend her workshop every year because I always learn something. So I will be there with you. All right, everybody. So much love and many blessings. Until next time.